first beast was a lion with eagle's wings. The second beast was a bear that was sort of hunched up on one side that had 3 ribs in the mouth. The third was a strange 4-headed leopard with 4 wings of a fowl. And the fourth was an unusual beast. He doesn't exactly tell us what it was. He just says it was ferocious, it was terrible, it was horrific, and it had how many horns? 10 horns. And it had teeth, strange teeth made of iron. You've got it. Now, think about that. 4 beasts, and over here there were 4 main metals, okay? Those 4 main metals then gave way to feet of iron and clay. And how many toes do you have on your feet? 10. And how many horns are on that beast? You've got it. And so what we're finding here is that God is reviewing what we've already learned in Daniel chapter 2. Okay? Now somebody says, what? Are you trying to tell me that these beasts aren't real beasts? How many of you ever seen a 4-headed leopard? Anyone ever seen that? Or a leopard with wings? Or a lion with wings? No, 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 no. The very same timeline is spelled out in Daniel chapter 7. But this time, instead of using a metal image, God uses 4 great beasts. Are these beasts literal? The answer is no. Look with me, you're still in Daniel chapter 7. Look at verses 17 and 23. Daniel chapter 7, verses 17 and 23.
These great beasts, which are 4 kings, which shall arise out of the earth. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth.
So in Bible prophecy, end-time Bible prophecy, a beast represents a kingdom. Does that make sense, everyone? Now notice that Pastor Asher didn't make that up. I didn't say, well, you know, what should we say these beasts represent? No, 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 no. It's right there in the book of Daniel. A beast represents a kingdom. Now this practice of referring to nations as beasts is still common even today. For example, what modern nations are represented by the following beasts? Okay, the bald eagle would be United States of America. The bear would be, yeah, the former USSR, that's right. The dragon would be, okay, there you go, very good. The beasts are symbolic. And the beasts came up out of what? Do you remember? They came out of the great sea that was being frothed up by the wind, right? Well, guess what? The water is also symbolic. Revelation chapter 17 and verse 15. We're going to spend a lot of time in Revelation 17, but I'll give you one verse very quickly.
The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues.
And so water in end-time Bible prophecy represents a populated area. We use that same language today. We'll say, oh, there was a sea of people there. Okay, that same kind of idea. So what Daniel here is seeing is 4 nations rising out of a populated area. These 4 beasts retrace exactly the same timeline that the image of Daniel 2 did, but with more detail thrown in to confirm historical correspondence. We still have Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and divided Rome. But God here is now throwing in more details. The winged lion was actually one of the most sacred symbols in ancient Babylon. On the great Ishtar gate, there were many different animals that were very symbolic and very important to the Babylonians, and one of them was a winged, guess what? Lion. That's exactly right. And so a winged lion is represented, of course, lion is the king of the beasts and gold is the chiefest of metals, and so here, just as Babylon was represented by the head of gold, so too Babylon is represented by this winged lion. Okay? Notice the next one. The chest of silver represented the great Medo-Persian Empire. Okay? And so too here we have a bear. Now it's very interesting to note there were 2 elements of that bear that were kind of interesting. Number one is it was hunched up on one side. You remember that? Showing an imbalance. And that's exactly what history tells us. The Medes and the Persians had to league together in order to rule the then known world, but the Persians were always the stronger of the 2. So the Persians were stronger than the Medes. The bear is raised up on one side, showing an imbalance. How many ribs were in the mouth? 3 ribs, representing the 3 provinces of Babylon that had to be conquered. Lydia, Phrygia, and Egypt. Those were the 3 provinces of Babylon that were conquered in order for Medo-Persia to come to ascendancy. Now, we notice the next one here. There was the leopard with 4 heads and 4 wings. And if time allowed, I could show you that wings in the Bible represent speed in prophecy. Wings represent what? Speed. And so a leopard is already, the leopard, the cheetah family, a very fast land mammal. Very fast, very powerful, representing, of course, the great empire of Greece. Now think about this. Alexander the Great began conquering the then known world at the age of 16, and by the time he was 30 years old, he had conquered the whole then known world. Is that very fast, yes or no? So you have a fast mammal, you put 4 wings on his back, you have a very rapidly moving empire here, just exactly what we see in Greece, but it gets even more amazing. Alexander the Great died in a drunken stupor at the age of 32. His last words were reputed to have been, "The kingdom goes to the strongest." That's right, the kingdom goes to the strongest. And because there was no heir that could just step into Alexander the Great's shoes, the kingdom goes to the strongest. So what ended up happening to Greece is they divided it, the Macedonian Grecian Empire, they divided it into guess how many parts? 4 parts. And there were 4 generals, Cassander, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, and Seleucus, that all went to the north, south, east, and west, and the kingdom of Greece was divided into 4. How many heads are on that leopard? 4. Incredible. Okay? More historical correspondence. Okay? But it gets even more amazing. The long legs of iron, represented by this hideous, strange, ferocious beast that was crushing everything. In fact, this beast was so ugly, so terrible, so amazing, Daniel couldn't even think of anything that looked like it. He said it was a horrific, terrible, ferocious beast with teeth of iron that would correspond with the long iron legs. That's exactly right. Of course, the great iron monarchy of Rome. And then how many horns were on that final beast? 10. And how many toes there? 10. So you have the correspondence. Just as Rome broke down into those 10 tribes, here we have Rome with the 10 horns. Okay? So just as we have Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, so too here, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome. Up to this point, we have no new information. This is all review. Now you'll notice that this strange beast here has these horns coming up, and if you look very carefully, you can actually see there's a little head on this horn. You might be thinking, well, where's there a head on that horn for? Well, that's what we're going to find out right now. Go back to Daniel chapter 7. Okay, and we're in verse 7. Very quickly, let's read about this ferocious beast.
After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns.
Now look at verse 8. Here's new information. Everything up to this point is review.
I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things.
That little horn is the Antichrist power. Okay? So Daniel here sees in vision these 4 beasts. How many beasts? 4 beasts. The 4th beast has 10 horns, and he's thinking about those horns. Something about those horns riveted his attention, and he sees another little horn come up among those horns, and this horn starts spouting his mouth off. That little horn is the Antichrist. And what we're going to do is give 10 identifying characteristics. You write them down in the corresponding verses, and you will see exactly who this power is. So are these literal horns? I mean, should we be somewhere out scouring the earth looking for 10 horns? No, no, no. The 10 horns represent 10 kings or kingdoms. Hey, that's exactly what we would expect, because here you have Rome. Rome divides into the iron and clay, which are kingdoms. Are we clear on that, everyone? Okay, 10 toes, 10 horns. And so the first thing we want to notice is, number 1, it's a little kingdom. Did it refer to any of the other horns as being little? No, no, no. But here it says a little horn. Identifying characteristic number 1, it's a little kingdom. Okay? Number 2, notice that it comes up among them. Did you see that in verse 8? Among them. Who's them? Them is the 10 horns, and the 10 horns are the nations of divided Rome, or today what we would call Europe. So this power has to come up among the European nations. Okay? Has to come up among them. So if we're looking for the Antichrist to pop up in Tokyo, you're looking in the wrong place. It has to come up among the nations of divided Rome, what we today call Europe. Okay? Number 3, it has to come up after them. You say, well, how do we know that? Well, think about it. It's a timeline. The little horn didn't come up during the period of Greece. The little horn didn't come up during the period of Medo-Persia. The little horn had to come up after the dividing of Rome. In other words, in order to come up among the nations of divided Rome, Rome would have had to have been divided. And so it has to come up, if you want the date, 476 AD. Has to come up after 476 AD sometime. If somebody says, oh, I know who the Antichrist is, and he came up in 233, wrong, can't be. Has to come up after the division of Rome. Number 4, notice that it plucked up 3 horns. What did it do? Plucked up 3. We'll come back to that. In fact, if you remember, it says it plucked up 3 by the roots. Now, what happens if you pluck up something by the roots? Shoo, gone. This horn was diverse or different from the other horns. You're still there in Daniel chapter 7. Look at verse 24.
And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first.
So something about this kingdom, this little kingdom, is different. It's what, everyone? It couldn't be like all the other kings. Something was different about this kingdom. Okay, let's continue. Number 6. This one